Hey guys, Dantix here, back with another Mass Effect video. Now, if you've played the trilogy, you'll know that there are a ton of planets, all of which contain, at the very least, a little blurb of information. Now, that could be a hint of a galactic threat, that could be astrology-based sciences, that could be some political nightmare. I've gone through all of these planets and found the most interesting of the bunch, so you don't have to. Let's start right now. So in Mass Effect 1, first we have Clandagan. I think that's how we pronounce it. You're going to spend most of this video probably correcting my pronunciation, but Clandagan is an arid terrestrial slightly larger than Earth, but with a lower density that reflects its relative lack of heavier elements. Blah 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 blah, dust fine sand, blah 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 blah. Its most striking feature is, of course, the Great Rift Valley that stretches across the southern hemisphere. What is most fascinating about the rift is that it does not appear to be natural. The geological record suggests that it is the result of a glancing blow by a mass accelerator round of unimaginable destructive power. This occurred some 37 million years ago. Now, the Reapers were around that time, so was this from a Reaper? Or was this from some other galactic threat that existed at the time? Was there some kind of war between them and the Reapers, or whoever else was living on this planet and who decided to clearly purge them? So we know that the Reapers don't exactly wipe the galaxy clean of their own footprint, so this could just be further evidence of that or something else. Alright, then we have Altai? I don't know guys, but we have Altai. It's an exceptional form of a planet called a Roche world. Simply put, it is one half of a pair of small and unusually dense terrestrial worlds, Altai and Ontai, that orbit each other so closely they effectively share a single atmosphere. This does not mean that one could fly from one to the other, but both have identical atmospheres and dust from one might often be found on another. Both worlds share an atmosphere of nitrogen and ethane, the surface is warm, mainly composed of silica dust, blah 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 blah. Okay, it's a pretty standard world besides the fact that it does share an atmosphere with another planet. Now this is the only one I can find in the whole galaxy when I did explore around. So let's land on the planet and have a look for ourselves just how close these two planets are. Now, pretty barren world, and there is the sister planet. Now, imagine if the moon was that big in the night sky. You'd have some romantic picnics, that's for sure. But yeah, they're not overlapping, but they're close enough that they do share that atmosphere. They do transport dust from one to the other. So that happens obviously with the gravitational pull between the two. Next we have the planet Clandagan. Clandagan is a rock and ice planet, but it's famously claimed by the eccentric Volus billionaire Kuman Shoal. He claims that a vision of a higher being told him to seek on Clandagan the lost crypts of beings of light. These entities were supposedly created at the dawn of time to protect organic life from synthetic machine devils. Shoal has been excavating on Clandagan's toxic surface for 2 decades at great expense. Wow, that's a long time. No government has valued the world enough to evict his small army of mercenaries. So this is not a particularly warm planet. The gravity is alright, but it's toxic. And this guy has had some kind of vision. Is it from the Leviathans? Is he looking for the graves of the Leviathans, perhaps, to protect life from these machine devils? Is he just crazy? Is there actually some kind of entity that protects us from synthetic machine devils? In which case, where the hell are you and why didn't you protect us? So are these higher beings Leviathan? We don't know. And clearly they didn't come and protect us from synthetic machine devils because this has been happening on a cycle for thousands and thousands of years. So was this a mad hallucination? Was he indoctrinated by coming into contact with some tech? We don't know, but something has happened to make this man spend his billions on a mercenary army for 20 years. Fun. The next planet I want to show off is Ban. Now, the planet itself isn't very remarkable, but The upper levels of Notenbound's atmosphere are inhabited by shoals of tiny ammonia-based life forms no larger or more complex than the plankton on Earth's oceans. Held aloft by air, these bioluminescent creatures constantly flee from the approach of the Terminator. Should they be exposed to the light and the heat of Grism, they die. So you can see them in the upper atmosphere here, which I thought was interesting, but if they ever reach this light side here, they die. So their whole life is constantly fleeing from death, from burning alive. So I thought we should all take a moment to self-reflect and see just how good we have it. Alright, check this one out. Norcrux. Okay, this one is a nightmare for the asthmatic. It's a verdant world with abundant water, temperate climate, a thick nitrogen, oxygen atmosphere, and a rich ecosystem. It would seem perfect for life. The relatively high percentage of oxygen makes humans feel energized and alive, but it also allows insects to grow to frightful sizes. So there are giant insects on this world. That's not all though. It's a case of not quite right. Thunderstorms are as common as on Earth, but in Norcrux's thicker oxygen-rich atmosphere, they are deafening and spark constant wildfires. So far, frightfully huge insects, explosive sounds, and burning alive. More damning, however, are the large and ubiquitous tufts of pollen that float on high-pressure air. In humans and other oxygen-breathing species, they cause severe or lethal allergic reactions. So, let's just recap. If you were on this world, you would have to watch out for, I'm assuming, giant spiders and scorpions and flies. As well as if you were to breathe the oxygen, you would maybe die or have a severe allergic reaction. And then you might also be deafened by a random lightning strike, which could also burn down your city. Cool. Now, Tanya is much the same as our last planet. It's suited for colonization. Sadly, appearances are deceiving. It's covered by a verdant carpet of moss, algae, lichen, and possesses a thick oxygenated atmosphere, but the animal kingdom is a web of microscopic symbiote creatures. These are impossible to filter from the air and necessary for the native life to thrive. Unfortunately, they also cause anaphylactic shock when inhaled by non-native life. So, in short, settlement requires either fully sealed environmental suits or replacement of the entire world's ecosystem. Some have proposed limited colonization at altitudes above the symbiote's range or in areas where favorable winds keep the air clear. Now this, I feel, is going to be a problem if we do venture out into the stars and do find life, is our biology hasn't really adapted to fighting off organic life that has evolved in other planets. So essentially, we would be faced with the question, do we want this world? If so, we have to purge the whole damn thing. Do we do that? Yeah, fuck them. Fuck them. Humans are the best. Go Team Human. No, I don't know. This is a question for philosophers well beyond the time that we currently live in. But this will probably be an issue that will be raised. The next planet is Scitau. Now this is a hothouse. It's shrouded by a high pressure atmosphere composed of carbon dioxide and sulfuric acids. Now the main thing is it has a dozen supervolcanoes, 50 to 120 kilometers wide, erupting across the planet. That's huge. Have you actually been able to see 120 kilometers in front of you? You can't. Okay, they're massive, and they're erupting across the planet constantly. Now, this also makes natural diamonds plentiful. So if you were willing to risk this kind of calamity, you might get rich. And I think this is yet another case of this could be an actual thing when we do start spacefaring, is do we want to go onto these kinds of planets? Do we want to risk these biblically hellish worlds for a chance of rare heavy metals or diamonds or materials that we could use? The answer is probably going to be yes. But I mean, none of our equipment that we currently possess can last very long in a 343 degrees Celsius atmosphere with 1.7 Gs of surface gravity and the pressure of 94.51 Earth atmospheres. Next is Logan. Not to be confused with Hugh Jackman, it's a standard hydrogen-helium gas giant. The survey team who charted the system 20 years ago reported many strange disturbances in Logan's cloud band, suggesting many remarkably large solid objects were present beneath the cloud tops. As the ships approached, however, they subsided one by one. These disturbances have not been reported again. Now it begs the question, is there some kind of ancient civilization hiding in the gas giant? Are they Reapers? Are they servants of the Reapers? Is there a race far beyond the technology that we can understand? Because if you know anything about gas giants, the pressure gets so intense that even gases turn into liquids at a certain depth. So you'll be going further and further down. As you do, you eventually hit a point where you are swimming. Now, that's if you could survive, which you most definitely cannot. You would be in soup. So what kind of technology can survive these kinds of extremes? We don't know, but this is something else we'd have to deal with if we were to become a spacefaring civilization, is technology that we simply don't understand. So another interesting planet is Canrum. Now, the planet itself isn't interesting, but what happened on the planet. It was the site of the warlord Shiaga's defeat by Turian peacekeeping forces during the Krogan rebellions. Now, you might have heard Shiaga before. It's mentioned by Grunt when he talks about what's in his genes. While this band was not especially powerful, Shiaga was a female warlord and one of the few remaining fertile females at that. She had, through viciousness and cunning, parlayed her unique value into a position of power. Krogan males competed for the right to join her band and lie with her. Now, that's an interesting reward for service. When Shiaga's death was announced, vengeful male Krogan admirer simps near and far swore blood oaths against participating Turian crews. I couldn't help myself there. Turian crews. In the end, several thousand of the Turian participants were killed in open combat or through assassination. To this day, many Krogan, like Grunt, say they have the blood of Shiaga. It's not a particularly interesting world besides that. The next planet is Yatta, or Yatta, because they discovered the Leviathan of Dis, the apparent corpse of a genetically engineered living starship. The Leviathan was found in the bottom of a crater by a Batarian survey team and estimated to be nearly 1 billion years old. It disappeared after a visit to the system by a Batarian dreadnought 20 years ago. Since then, the Batarians have denied the Leviathan existed at all, even when shown recordings. They were indoctrinated. This was an early glimpse into the Leviathan, and the Leviathan DLC obviously came in Mass Effect 3. This is Mass Effect 1. So Leviathans were the Reapers' creators, obviously, and they did have the ability to indoctrinate, and I'm guessing that's what happened to these Batarians here when they did find the Leviathans. So they were discovered quite some time ago. I'm guessing this kind of thing happened a lot in Mass Effect's history. Since the Leviathans evolved, if they were ever discovered, they essentially indoctrinated who discovered them. So interesting that Yatta had discovered one of their corpses. Wonder what happened. The next planet is Paloba. It's a gas giant. Now, active scans by survey ships have returned tantalizing indications of massive solid structures deep within the atmosphere, too regular in pattern to be anything natural. Some believe Paloba is a Jupiter brain, a planet-sized supercomputer. And that doesn't seem that likely. But others believe that an ancient spacefaring race disposed of their weapons of war by dumping them into the planet. The last attempt to reach and salvage Paloba's deep anomalies went tragically wrong and ended with a crew of 12 being trapped and crushed in the gas giant's lower atmosphere. Now, I don't even know how they got to the lower atmosphere of a gas giant, but like I was mentioning before, you don't really want to venture into these things. They're quite dangerous. It's very difficult to escape once you're in, and depending on the technology that we currently have, it would be impossible. The technology that I have in the Mass Effect universe would be very improbable. Now, the main reason I wanted to point this one out is because there's something on the surface here that I can't make out. See, if I zoom out and zoom back in, that's there on the planet. What is that? Is that part of these solid structures deep beneath the surface? I don't know. Are they teasing us a little bit there, or is it just like a weird little dot? Little green little things. I don't know. Someone zoom in for me. But anyway, could be ancient civilization that just been destroyed and dumped into there, or could be a city from a civilization that knows how to deal with that kind of pressures and those kinds of hellish, nightmarish situations. We don't know. Alright, so Klinsel made me laugh. This is a pretty unremarkable world, but what happened on it was pretty remarkable. It was surveyed originally by Batarians, and they suggested areas of great mineral wealth. Human mining concerns spent billions of credits hustling to the distant system and sinking test bores to claim the system for humanity. But Klinsel had only an average level of mineral wealth, valuable but hardly worth the rush and expense. Murder Industry, a small Mexican company hoping to strike it rich in their first extrasolar mining adventure, had to file for bankruptcy protection. Investigation revealed the Batarian crew had deliberately falsified their surveys, hoping it would encourage human rivals to invest in a costly boondoggle. Boondoggle, is that the official word for it, Bioware? While unethical, this was not technically illegal, and the Batarian government disavowed the personal actions of a few misguided patriots. The planet is still littered with abandoned mining bases, which are often used as temporary meeting places for criminals. Now, if you thought Batarians had any redeeming qualities, you are completely mistaken. They are scum, and most of them are scum, and they're intended to be scum. And why have we not received a Batarian crewmate yet? That would be amazing. Just one person that is all for you when you're Renegade, but not when you're Paragon. That'd be great. So they had no monetary reason for screwing over humans. They just wanted to make a statement, cost them a bit of money, which I find funny, but it is a very childish thing to do from a group of people that aren't very intelligent. Next we have Gramar, which is a fairly unremarkable world as well, but what is interesting is the twinkly lights that you see all over the planet. Now you would assume that this is because it's heavily populated, but no, it's because of a byproduct of the metabolism of a simple fungus and lichen that evolve in the low energy environment. So when a lot of them congeal together, they produce light that can be seen from orbit, which I found pretty interesting. I'm sure if there is life in the universe, which there most definitely will be, this is the kind of randomness that we can expect. The next planet is Garvag in Mass Effect 2 and in Mass Effect 3. So in 3054 CE, Garvag was considered a bargaining wheel given to the Krogan to placate them because no one else wanted to live on such a frozen rock. So what would happen if you removed the genophage? I know in Mass Effect 3 they did a lot to make the Krogan more human, you know, showing you their suffering and how bad they feel, but the realistic situation is that when their numbers are left unchecked, they do consume everything like a pestilence. Similar to us, but a lot worse. So this is an example world of how the Krogan would be. So the Krogan had completely adapted, breeding hundreds of younglings per family in vast underground bunkers. By the turn of the century, Garvag's narrow strips of coral reef had been completely destroyed by overfishing and pollutants, and excess Krogan took to the stars to find another planet to consume. Garvag was treated as an object lesson by the Citadel Council. The Krogan could not be trusted to check their own numbers. Today, Garvag is a frozen wasteland, home to corporate eco-engineering efforts trying to implement sustainable agri and aquatic culture practices. Krogan and Vulture packs are a constant threat, and the corporations pay mercenaries to keep their operations safe. So this is what happens when you have a lot of sympathy for the Krogan. Now that being said, I gave the genophage cure to the Krogan as well, and I let them run free, but that was just because I thought they would be needed for the Reapers. Realistically, this will happen to the universe with a Krogan race that is left unchecked. And maybe in Mass Effect 5 we'll see what the result of the genophage cure was if the Krogan are peaceful. And I guarantee they aren't, guys. I guarantee they aren't. The next planet is Job. Now, this is a 2-moon habitable planet and is most known for its mass extinction event. Thousands of years ago, Job was home to a primate-like spacefaring civilization as well as abundant flora and fauna. However, this can only be deduced from time capsules put into the ground well outside habitation centers. All cities and detectable dwellings were targeted in a mass orbital bombardment that turned them into vapor. The resulting dust shroud killed all photosynthetic life and fauna dependent on it. Today, humans have recolonized the planet and rapidly introducing their own species. Also, be careful, travel advisory. Atmospheric pressure at sea level on Job is double that of Earth. Visitors with upper respiratory infections, cancers, and other problems consult their physician. Now, there's 2 things I want to talk about here. First, was this civilization wiped out by the Reapers? In which case, we should have found more time capsule-like things from different civilizations warning us about the Reapers, right? We would have. I mean, we do find the Prothean artifacts, but that was kind of placed around the galaxy by the Reapers in order to progress our technology in such a way that it would be easier to harvest. So I think the Reapers do a fairly good job of completely wiping clean traces of their own involvement, but leaving a few footprints just to put like a breadcrumb trail. So in which case, I don't think that this particular extinction event happened because of the Reapers. I think it might just have been a runaway greenhouse effect or something along those lines, or a comet or something. Also, this is something we would have to deal with when we colonize other planets. So you might not be able to live on another planet just simply because you have some kind of, like I was saying before, a problem with your respiratory system. You can't breathe in pollen from other places. You could have a cancer that just makes it so the pressure is just too much. Earth is the perfect environment for us, and we are so fragile. We are such a fragile race of creatures because we need things to be perfect, but there's such a vast range of differences within the universe that we need such a pinpoint of perfection that I find it very difficult to believe there are many planets out there that are going to be suited long term for us without some kind of technological help. And this is one such example. It's only a little bit off with the atmospheric pressure, only a little bit, but still it's not good enough for us, for everyone. The next planet is Halgalaz. Now, this planet you visit during the Shadow Broker's Lair DLC. This is where the Shadow Broker's ship is hiding in the perpetual storm in the Terminator part of the equator. Now, the reason there is a perpetual storm that's ongoing is because although Halgalaz has a nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere capable of supporting life, its rotational period is slower than Earth's, making its day and night 98 Earth days long. The intense heat on one side of the planet and the extreme cold on the other make for violent storm cells wherever the sun is rising or setting. As a result, the flora and fauna of Halgalaz has developed the capacity to live in cycles of ice, flooding, baking heat, and dramatic air pressure changes. Now, one side is 72 degrees Celsius and another is minus 64 degrees Celsius. This just sounds like hell to me. Now, it's interesting that these kinds of planets do exist in the universe. Rotationary period is something we take for granted, but if we were any slower, a lot of us would be baking and freezing. And if it was faster, we'd have a more stable environment up to a point where we'd be just flung off the planet. Nerog. It's a tragic story of reaching too far. So, it's a gas giant. It was once home to Isul, a Batarian warlord who terrorized the Terminus systems. Attempting to unite a pirate army under his banner, he successfully conducted a rapid blitz against 11 habitable planets. Fortunately for the rest of the galaxy, Isul's crimes caught the attention of Spectres, who deduced his hidden location and assassinated him. Isul's empire, built on a hyper-extended army, soon came crashing down. He lost his stockpiles of Element Zero, and they have become something of legend. Foolish spacers have spent countless amounts of time and money searching the Batella system, convinced they will be the ones to finally strike it rich. And this is another situation we as humans might encounter when we do venture out into the stars, is striking it rich, finding hidden treasure, or finding treasure that others had left behind or have stockpiled in worlds that they were once on, or loot that's dumped as they're being chased by the authorities. And yeah, so I'm guessing it's going to be kind of like a cowboy situation, the Wild West, until technology catches up, where it's just a mad rush to find the most amount of loot, most amount of gold, diamonds within volcanoes and all that stuff. So Nerog's a good example of space piracy. The next planet is and that's probably the sound you make if you ever landed on this planet, because it is a mild 1,445 degrees Celsius with 90 Earth's atmospheres and 4.6 times Earth's gravity. This is worse than being in an oven. Just think about that. This is a lot worse than being in an oven. Like, a lot worse than being in an oven. By normal standards, a large rock planet, Pahur, is constantly scorched by the white, bright giant at its orbits. A dense atmosphere featuring hydrogen, helium, and clouds of vaporized magnesium float over its iron-rich core, making for a truly hellish landscape. Its spectacular temperature prevents any practical exploration. Why would you want to explore this thing? I wouldn't be surprised if there's a literal devil on it. Like, you land on it and there's just the devil standing there like, hey, you weren't supposed to find my secret hideout. Like, this is ridiculous. You know, and we look at this ridiculous temperature, the most that I could find within Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. And this actually isn't even that much when you consider that a lot of the gas giants that are failed stars still have an extreme amount of heat in the center, which makes the planet itself a lot hotter than this. But, okay, moving on. The next planet is Hakuna, and it made me laugh a little bit because if the Quarians weren't screwed over enough, the Council had at them with this one. First discovered by the Quarians at the turn of the century, Hakuna is habitable, but a second-tier choice for most species. Circling an orange sun, Hakuna averages below freezing temperatures. This led to development firms to colonize at the planet's equator, where the climate is tolerable for agriculture. The Quarians, seeking a homeworld of their own, petitioned the Council for the right to take over Hakuna, but they had already settled a few 100,000 Quarians on the planet before approaching the Council. Seeing this occupation as an illegal act, the Council turned a deaf ear to the Quarian pleas and gave the world to the Alcor, who could withstand the high gravity of the world far better. I get that part of it, but this was just a, you got to talk to us first, how dare you, kind of situation. The Quarians squatting on the planet were given one galactic standard month to leave, at which point their colonies would be bombarded. The junk left behind the fleeing Quarians clogs up portions of the landscape today. Non-Alcor visitors are advised to use Mass Effect fields to lighten the pressure, as the surface gravity would otherwise cause health and mechanical problems. And it's only 4.1 times Earth's surface gravity, but that would crush us completely. So the Quarians, who essentially did the right thing in a way. I mean, they did settle first and then ask questions later, but were made to move, otherwise they would be bombarded, even though they themselves discovered the planet and it's not an extremely viable planet for a lot of people. The Council still needed to stick it to them for daring defy them. So I thought this was quite an interesting read, all things considered, because the Council are kind of evil. Now, Crewban is within the Krogan DMZ, and I'm just going to read out this planet's description so you can understand how badass the Krogan are. Crewban is a tidally locked Venetian hothouse, its surface perpetually obscured by clouds of sulfur and carbon dioxides. The first group of Krogan brought into orbit by the Solarian uplift teams requested a trip to Crewban. The Solarians at first thought the Krogans were confused about the nature of Crewban's environment. The planet is named for a Krogan mythological paradise in which honorable warriors feast on the internal organs of their enemies. In fact, Krogan astronomers had correctly deduced the nature of Crewban in the years before the global Holocaust. In the 2 millennia since, Crewban had come to be thought of as an ideal test of one's toughness. You know where they're going with this. Every year, a few Krogan attempt to land on Crewban and exit their ships naked in an attempt to prove their Kroganhood. The planet's surface is littered with the crushed corroded remains of their ships. Only one, Shath Nora, is known to have returned from the surface alive, albeit with most of his bones crushed and all 4 of his lungs damaged by sulfuric gas. Nora recovered from his trial to the adulation of his people until he died in 1943. He could lie with any fertile female he wished. So only one Krogan has survived this, and the reason being it's 728 degrees Celsius on the surface. It is poisonous. It is sulfur and carbon dioxides. Its atmospheric pressure is 47.3 Earth atmospheres. Granted, the surface gravity isn't as much, but the atmospheric pressure is just insane. So Krogans can survive this. And I recently made a video on who would win out of all of Shepard's crewmates in a battle royale situation, in a Hunger Games situation. And without giving away who won, there is a top kind of set of crewmates, and of course the Krogan make an appearance, and this is one of the reasons they are incredibly hearty. That's not really reflected by the gameplay. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. Alright, so this is a bit of a galaxy-wide tidbit of information, but this planet here, Solterra and Promavis, are about to collide. The collision should take place very soon, and the Asari have set up a station within Tritogeneth to observe the phenomenon. In order to observe the eventual collision of blah blah blah. A Reaper troop transport can be seen here, indicating that the Reapers sent a small force to capture or kill the station staff. Why they did not destroy the station outright is a mystery. It could be that the direct collision of 2 planets is so rare that even the Reapers wish to observe the results. Now, I find that interesting because how rare is 2 planets colliding at this stage in the universe? I imagine at early stages of the galaxy's formation, collisions would happen all the time, which is how there's planets and gas giants and so forth in the first place. But 2 worlds colliding like this, maybe the Reapers want to observe this because it could further their own technology or so forth, in which case they care more about the extermination of higher life than we're led to believe. What could be other motives? We don't know. Anyway, I thought this was interesting as well. The next planet is Tragos. Now, this serves as a reason why the extermination of higher life is a long process for the Reapers. This is a largely frozen ice ball, except for liquid seas at the equator. Tragos has the coldest winters of any Asari colony, taking it down near the 2nd tier of habitability. The colonists are a hardy bunch, using the freezing winter months to test whether newcomers have what it takes to carve out a life on the planet. The colonists are fighting the Reapers in a guerrilla war, their best resource being submarine vehicles that can slip underneath the sea ice to mask their heat. Unfortunately, these have not proven good tools for taking back population centers from the Reapers, and for now the colonists will have to be satisfied with commando actions to harass their synthetic oppressors. So that's interesting. I don't know if the Reapers have any underwater equipment or underwater related Reapers, but that would be truly terrifying, seeing a whale Reaper come at you. And finally we have Lemni. Now, if you thought the Reapers were systematically wiping out intelligent life by going system to system, you'd be right, but they also found their targets via the internet, which makes a lot of sense. So as with Pania, Lemni had mining facilities in orbit, remote controlling machines on the planet's surface to recover Lemni's highly valued elements. Unfortunately, the miners made no secret of their presence, and to find all traces of them and wipe them out, all the Reapers needed to do was access the extranet. It's like, how did they find that, sir? I don't know, I just put my blog post up the other day. So, high surface temperature, normal gravity, you get the point, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I love going through all these planets. This kind of thing just gets me off, you know? For everything RPG, keep it on Daddies. Ciao, friends. With a trace atmosphere of Krypton and Xenon. The surface is hot and blah 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 blah, but the main thing is Yatta is noticed for the discovery, yeah, of the... Fuck, what am I doing? Of the Leviathan of this... Jesus Christ, am I recording this? I'm just gonna put this up, fuck it. I feel like a fucking moron.